What's up, guys? It's Tyler from House of Cards TCG, and we just completed 2 YCSs over the weekend. I'm really excited to dive into a lot of information on this. I have a lot to go over with you, going from Tom Box's commentary to a lot of popular cards that we noticed that were in people's deck list, as well as having some deck lists to kind of look over and to go over. One being Plants, which you know is a big favorite of mine. Let's see, what else do we have? P.u.n.k summoning 3 Arise Hearts in 1 turn. Crazy, right? Ban list coming out, and we're going to talk about YCS Philly, which is the next YCS on the books coming up, and obviously that date got changed, so stay tuned. We're going to go over it, and also please make sure to subscribe to the channel so you can get notified every time we do a video, and you can keep us going. We are on the road to 3,000 subscribers, and we truly appreciate everyone for their support. Without further ado, let's dive into the YCS meta analysis.
House of Cards
TCG.
Alright, diving into it, of course I had to pull up the channel to promote everything that we do, and I wanted to go over one thing, which was our playlist here. So as you can see in our playlist, we have some Ironmon streams, some live streams, some Master Duels, some dueling books, no ban list, how to beat other decks, which is a huge one, openings, market talk, live duels, all the good stuff for you. So with all that being said, make sure to subscribe to the channel, and also let's dive into the first talking point, which is Tom Box. Tom Box did an incredible job with his overall performance at the YCS. I'm not sure if this was his first gig or his first time actually commentating over the YCS and the duels. However, I'd like to mention, Tom, that you did a phenomenal job in your commentary. Having a competitive player actually being able to talk about some competitive plays and seeing lines that the other players are going to be going for made it so that this actually was a huge performance for him, and it was really awesome to actually listen to him and him know the cards and the lines and the competitiveness and where the lines were going to go. I mean, overall, Konami, you did a great job having a competitive player come in and do a lot of the commentary. Billy obviously is an incredible commentator, but having Tom there to be able to help and to push that even further for the US really did a great job. Over in the EU, obviously their talk is just incredible. The way that they talk, they competitively go over a lot of the plays and the cards. But obviously, having Tom was incredible, so I'd like to give a shout out to that. Now let's get into some of the cards that we saw play. Alright, so we're going to dive into some lists real quick, and we're going to go look at them because I want to talk about 2 cards that I noticed that had a lot of play, that being Gamma and Droll. So a lot of lists played Gamma and a lot of lists played Droll, and I saw them used quite often. So going forward into your next regionals and into the next YCS and locals, I would fully expect to see a lot of Gamma and a lot of Droll. Now, Gamma is very interesting because you have cards like the Excel Synchron Dragon, which just came out, which is basically a Baron. So if your people are starting to see this, and you're able to Gamma people's cards on your turn, you could go ahead and make Excel Synchron Stardust Dragon, and then you could bring back the Gamma, and then you could go ahead and link them off right into a Baron. It's like a free Baron. So obviously Gamma and Droll being very popular this YCS, a lot of people were on those cards. So fully expect to see a lot of the Gamma and drivers going forward into a lot of calls. So when you think about your deck building and what you're going to be playing, do consider those cards. Another card I want to talk about is Dimensional Barrier. I guess we can go ahead and pull up a list. We have a Kashtira. This one off of Yu-Gi-Oh! Pro Deck. This was a Kashtira list. This was in London. It was a runner-up in London, obviously. And as you can see, a lot of the cards here, Gamma in the side deck, like I talked about. So Gamma being a very, very popular card. And this is obviously in a Kashtira deck with a Kashtira build. And they obviously decided to run with the Omega. Now here's the other thing I want to mention. What you don't see in this side deck, which I'll scroll down so that you can see it, is you do not see Dimensional Barrier. So in a lot of the lists that I looked at, Dimensional Barrier is missing. And if you remember, in a video that I did prior to this, I mentioned that Dimensional Barrier I didn't feel like was a strong card anymore. It was very powerful against Despia, but you're starting to see a downfall of Despia, and you're not seeing Despia as much. And people are starting to realize that Ash is just as strong against Despia. And if you can actually just control the game from there, Despia has a hard time playing. And 2 decks that Dimensional Barrier really countered was Despia, and that's why people played it. But naturally, they just obviously contested Sword Soul as well. Sword Soul just, it's not that people played Dimensional Barrier for Sword Soul, but the Sword Soul just naturally got hit. So now that you're starting to see people not really play Dimensional Barrier in a lot of these lists, you could see a resurgence of Sword Soul. And I think that Despia and Sword Soul are going to start coming up and being more popular, and you're going to see a lot of those decks going forward. So that's something I just want to mention to you to keep in mind so that you are aware. Expect to see more Despia and expect to see more Sword Soul, especially because Despia is also getting some support in the next core set, which is obviously the Cyberstorm Access, I believe. Cyberstorm something, I can't remember, but they do get a new trap, and I do believe something else. So keep in mind you could see a resurgence of Despia, and with Dimensional Barriers kind of not seeing a lot of play right now, that's something important to note. Alright, so we see this Kashtira list. Let's talk about something else, and that is my nemesis. My most hated deck that I just wish would just go away, because I hate seeing it, and I want to see it disappear, unfortunately, is Florunderies. Florunderies got a top in the US, Los Angeles, YCS. This deck just won't go away. If you remember, I played my Sun Avalon Adventure deck. One of my losses at the regional were to a Florunderies player. Game 1 and Game 3, Featherstorming, and I couldn't play, and I lost because it had nothing to do with skill. It's just I lost to a Featherstorm. But obviously, we're seeing Florunderies take a top in the, I believe, top 4 in the YCS at LA. You hate to see it, but unfortunately, Florunderies is still here to stay. I did call Florunderies being a meta deck when the ban list dropped. I said I think Florunderies will still be a meta deck. I thought I missed that, and I thought that I was wrong when I said that Florunderies was not going to be a relevant deck going forward. But a top 4 in the YCS, is it meta now? Are you going to see more Florunderies being played? That is the question. Interesting enough, I'd like to mention too, there's no Dark Ruler in this Florunderies lists, but there is a Royal Decree obviously with the Featherstorm, and you do see the Drolls, no Gamma, but this is Florunderies with no Dark Ruler, which is actually my next talking point. So Dark Ruler, I think, is going to be very popular. I did well at the regional in Philly because I did not fear Dark Ruler. I was able to full board combo. My opponents basically had to scoop because they had no out. If Dark Ruler gets obviously more prevalent and you start seeing more Dark Rulers and people playing 3 of Dark Ruler again, you could see a lot of combo decks getting checked, which is going to be really important to note. I saw a lot of Dark Ruler, and me being a combo player, it actually made me feel nervous because I wasn't sure if Dark Ruler was going to be very popular going forward, and I do believe that you're going to see a resurgence in Dark Rulers. There is another interesting card I'm going to mention, but that's in another deck list that we're going to be talking about. But for right now, just to mention, Dark Ruler did see play. So you have to right now think about those different cards going forward is Droll, Gamma, Dark Ruler, and no Dimensional Barrier. What kind of decks do you think that you could play that could out those different kind of cards? I know that me going forward, I'm going to look at something that kind of answers to Dark Ruler. You know, back in the day of Dragon Link where they used to bring out Hot Red Archfiend, and then you could actually chain Tidying and then Hot Red negate the Dark Ruler. I'm going to be looking to play some deck like that because I just don't want to lose to a Dark Ruler. Alright, so we have this Florunderies deck list. I found another interesting, you know, I love the Rogue stuff. I love seeing Rogue do well in the YCSs. So I found another deck list that I like to talk about, and that is the Evil Twin Runic. This goes into my next talking point that I want to bring up, which is Runic the best engine in Yu-Gi-Oh right now? I mean, you talk about some different things, right? You had Shuping that was playing Runic Kashtira. You have this list, which is a Sprite Evil Twin Runic. You have Nateria Runic. I think that when we look into like ban lists going forward, you might have to consider Runic potentially getting hit. And it's like, what do you hit? Obviously, the clear options are Fallon and Tip, but Runic might actually be the best engine in Yu-Gi-Oh! People are just starting to put Runic into every single deck that they possibly can. And obviously, looking at this type of deck here, you can see this is very much a going second list. I mean, you have the Kaijus, you have it evenly matched in the main deck, and then you just basically have, if you go first, you set up your Live Twin Sprite Runic setup, right? In the side deck, as you can see, they do have the Gamma package, which is very, popular in the deck list. And then they also have Nib, no Droll in this list, obviously. So we're seeing evenly in Drolls a lot. Dark Rulers, very popular, and Gamma being very popular. So I don't really want to go over too much lists. I know that Shane is going to be talking about that in a future video where he's going to actually analyze a lot of the deck lists. But I just want to mention, and that is Runic possibly the best deck, or the best engine in Yu-Gi-Oh! Which is, with a ban list coming up, what does that mean for the future YCS and for future deck buildings going forward? All right, next talking point. Make sure I've hit everything on my list here. I pretty much have, but we're going to talk about a couple of the lists that I have here, which is my favorite plants. So Rika got a top 8, and it was no Sun Avalon. It was pure Rika, which I think is incredible. And I think very interesting enough, they played in the main deck, which was Droplet. Now, at the last regional, I actually went to pick up 3 droplets because I think that droplet is actually an interesting card this format because you're allowed to actually OTK. Now, the problem with Kashtira, when you go up against Kashtira, is if you go into their board and you break it, but you don't finish them and OTK them, basically they answer with Birth. They answer with a 1-card combo, which is Fenrir, Unicorn. All those different cards which just keep returning, and they very easily can break your board, especially if you didn't establish your full board. So I think it's interesting that this player decided to actually play 3 droplets, because if you could deal with the Arise Heart with a card like Book of Moon, right? Then you go for the droplets, you can very much OTK, especially in a deck like Rika. So this duelist actually decided to just take on pure Rika, which I think is incredible. No Sun Avalon in this deck list, no anything like that, and they focused more on all the Rika cards. So they have cards like this one, which is Perelius, and then they have cards like this one, which is the Kansashi Rika Queen. I actually haven't even seen these cards or even read these cards, but it's very interesting enough to see a pure Rika list actually make a top 8. I've actually tested with Rose Lover before, which is you banish it from the graveyard, special summon 1 plant from your hand. If you do, it's unaffected by your opponent's traps. Basically, it's just an extender. I've tested with a lot of these different cards in my plant builds, but obviously I found that the Sun Avalon was just more better for me, obviously. Not more better, that sounds weird, but better. But Tranquility, playing this one, so you play the Sheet and the Tranquility, and be able to activate the Tranquility. You special summon 1 Rika monster from your graveyard. Then if you tribute a monster when you activate special 1 plant from your graveyard in defense, being able to Tranquility bring out a card like Rose Whip that's in your graveyard. So you're dodging cards like Dark Ruler or Imperm, where your opponent can go ahead and Dark Ruler your board. Then you could go ahead and flip Tranquility, special summon back your Rose Whip, and you basically have a lock that dodged Dark Ruler. Your opponent already activated a spell or trap, so now they're locked. Absolutely incredible. And I think that, interesting enough, the droplets do play a role, especially against something like Skill Drain, where if you're under Skill Drain or something like that, because I've seen some Nat Runic players doing that. When they go first, they'll side in the Skill Drain. So, or the Dark Roll, I saw a Dark Roll player side in Skill Drain. So being able to dodge things and be able to dodge cards that target like Valor and Imperm with droplets, I think is an incredible feat for this duelist. I think that this deck list going forward is going to be something that I test, and I'm going to be trying to, see what I can make it, turn it into my own, and really try out the pure Rika build. I do have one more I'd like to bring up to you, which is the Raid Raptor Kashtira, something that I found here. I think that this is very interesting. Obviously, they main Dark Ruler, which is what it sparks right here. You see 2 Dark Ruler right here in the main. But Raid Raptors, I'm going to be honest with you, I have no idea what the goal of this deck is to do. I don't know if it just brings out more level 7s or rank 7s or what, because, you play the extra deck Arsenal Falcon, but it doesn't really do much that I could think of. Maybe I can understand if you're trying to go for a Utopic Draco play, but obviously the Raid Raptor stuff, very interesting. Obviously this duelist did decide to play Dimensional Barrier, so you do see a 2 of it. It's obviously a thrust target or something like that. But obviously very interesting. Again, I am not 100% sure. Maybe you can comment down below what the Raid Raptor stuff does, because it's got me stumped. And Shane plays Kashtira, and we were trying to theorize on what the actual Raid Raptor stuff might be able to do, and we did not come up with this, so maybe you can let us know. And again, I have one more Kashtira. This one I think was a topping deck list. This was YCS London top 32, and this was different stuff, Gamma in the main deck. So we obviously talked about Gamma being very popular. And then you have the Prosperity with the Desires. Obviously draw that very much. And I brought this deck list up because I want to show you his side deck, 1-dimensional barrier in this one. But you see he's got the Dark Rulers obviously in the side deck. So Dark Ruler definitely making a comeback in the meta, and it's not even just a one-of copy for Thrust. People playing 2 and 3 copies of Dark Ruler, so be on the look for that. It's very important that you realize that. And let's go ahead and break down the top 64 at the YCS in Los Angeles. So I think that the one that I'm very interested in is the Kashtira P.u.n.k. I've been working on Kashtira P.u.n.k. a lot lately, and not necessarily Kashtira P.u.n.k, but P.u.n.k. Gold Pride. So it's nice seeing a Kashtira P.u.n.k. list actually top. Then you see 32 Kashtiras. So thinking about the next future ban list, I think that 100% that you're going to go ahead and probably see Kashtira getting hit in some capacity. I don't think that Kashtira should get hit because I think it's a fair deck. I mean, you look at this list and you wouldn't think so, right? But I do think that Kashtira is a fair deck. I don't think it's overpowered or power crept. maybe there's a world where you maybe take Shangri-La and you limit it to 1. That I could see as a possibility, so then that way you're preventing the 5 zone lock. But other than that, I think Kashtira is a fair deck, and maybe you get rid of Dimensional Shifter. I mean, having the best deck also have access to Dimensional Shifter makes rogue decks more difficult to compete. But I mean, looking at the top 64, obviously, like I said, 32 of them being Kashtira, and then you also have a Kashtira Punk being mixed in there. 7 Runic Naturias. I think that we definitely saw that coming. Runic Naturia really put in work. I mean, that deck is on the map as something that you should 100% prepare for. A lot of players played it, and I think that's why you're going to see a lot of resurgence of Droll, and you're going to see cards like Dark Ruler coming in, because that really crushes that kind of deck. Then you have Runic Plunder Patrol, Sprite, Tri-Brigade Sprite. I did see Kamal's list on Tri-Brigade Sprite. Very interesting. I do want to try that one out too. I think that has a lot of potential. Then you had your Naturally, you had your Adventure Sprite, which obviously won the YCS. There was only one list that actually made it. I think that goes to show you that potentially that people were prepared for that one, and Kashtira, of course, but the Adventure Sprite really getting knocked down. It makes you wonder what the power of the Adventure cards really are. You had the Branded Despia, 3 of them. Drytron making it, Fluunderies, Mathmech, Scareclaw, Kaiju. I don't know what Kaiju deck is, but Kaiju kind of sounds insane. Maybe it's a going second. Marincess. You have another Punk list, which I would be excited to see, because I'm really trying to dive into a lot of Punks right now and try to test and theorize with a lot of Punk. The Rika list we went over, you got a Sky Striker, a Sorcerer Tenia, Tier Laments, which we saw on the big screen, which was able to be shown. And then we have a Trap Tricks list. So there's your breakdown for your top 64 over at the YCS LA. A lot of variety. I love when there's a lot of variety and there's a lot of different lists and a lot of things that you can look at. That's a sign for me for a good format. I know a lot of competitive players don't like it because you can't prepare, but I love seeing variety because I play a lot of variety and I love Rogue. And so seeing lists like this makes me more excited to play in future tournaments. And basically, the 2 decks that you should prepare for really are Kashtira and Runic Naturia. Those 2 decks showed up and they competed and they played, and if you don't know what those decks do, you're not going to have a good time. So, and last thing that I want to mention, YCS Philly, we're very excited. Shane and I will both be there. We're looking to play. They changed the date, however, and you should make sure that you're aware. So now the date is May 27th to May 28th. It was the 12th through the 13th, I do believe. So they made it 2 weeks later. Some say for a Taylor Swift concert. I don't know. Could be because of Mother's Day, Taylor Swift concert. Who knows? But make sure that you're aware of that. And with all that being said, I think we've gone over everything. Make sure to subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for more information. We look forward to further going over the YCS information and checking out more things that we can come up with. Comment down below what you think your takeaways are from the YCS so that you can let us know what we are aware of. We'll comment back and just talk a little bit about it. But going forward, big things are Dark Ruler and Droll back in the format. Runic Naturia definitely on the board. Dimensional Barrier didn't really see much play and evenly crushed a lot of decks, as well as Kashtira Duelist summons 3 Arise Hearts in 1 turn. That's crazy, right? All right, guys, this has been Tyler with House of Cards TCG signing out. Peace.